depends on what you're trying to optimize for, and it also depends on your ego. Because if you're trying to optimize for vanity metrics, that's totally fine. And that's what most people do. Like, okay, so write me ads that have high click-through rates, for example. Most media buyers or people who are managing Facebook ads, for example, oftentimes they optimize on click-through rates. They don't have all the data throughout the funnel. And most people don't even measure it to begin with. But you can also optimize for like customer satisfaction, right? You can optimize for getting loyal fans. And there's different copy that produces loyal fans than the copy that just gets you the click, but ultimately.
Yo, what is up? This is Christian D. Evans, host of Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. And I just want to share with you real quick, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It really means a lot to us, but also our community. And, if you like this, please share this with your friend, your family, a colleague, someone that you don't even like. Definitely share that with them. And then also leave a comment and a review for us. We really do appreciate that. And show our guests some love if you find that this episode really resonates with you. Secondly, also want to share with you some really awesome news. I've had the Fortune Opportunity Network and have incredible guests, 8 and 9 figure entrepreneurs, CEOs, and founders on our podcast. And what we've done is we've actually been able to open up a Be Uncommon If You Can mastermind, where we're able to open up the door for so many of you, right? Those that are 6-figure, 7-figure entrepreneurs that are scaling, that are struggling, that really want to level up their game, their business, their life, whatever it is. I'm able to open up that door for you with this Be Uncommon If You Can mastermind. Now, we're only taking a select few of individuals. So what you'll need to do is go to christiandievans.com/mastermind-now. And the link is actually in the description as well. Guys, that is christiandievans.com/mastermind-now. We're only opening this up for a select few of individuals that really want to level up their game. You have a conversation with me, see if you qualify. And guys, enjoy the episode. And remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers. Thank you so much for tuning into Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, Christian D. Evans, and we have a sales expert in emotional marketer. See, not a direct response marketer, guys. It is emotional marketing because that's what it takes to convert at a high level. And we have this individual on because he has been able to actually take 100 high-performing ads, analyze those to the deepest level, and been able to build an amazing report, which we're going to dive into today. And he's also been able to help incredible CEOs, marketers, business people, entrepreneurs, authors, speakers, really dial in their conversions, but just dialing in their emotional copywriting. My friend, the one and only, the CEO and founder of Game of Conversions, Csaba Borzasi. How you doing, my man?
Hey, Christian, great to be here. What a nice intro. Love it. Thank you so much.
Well, hey, I'm really excited about it because, there's very few people that I have seen definitely in the copywriting world and definitely what you're doing. First of all, having that emotional aspect, but also really diving to the next level, right? I mean, you're going 3, 4, 5 depths of psychology and understanding and analyzing, 100 ads, taking that, analyzing that data and being able to give it to your audience and being able to help influence and impact, hundreds upon hundreds of business owners and really just increase the conversions. But I'd like to kind of talk about what do you see right now that's in the market? The majority of business owners really are not optimizing when it comes to copywriting.
Great question. I think one of the biggest problems I see with most business owners is that they're trying to rely on tactics way too much. And this has been a recurring problem for some time. Some guru comes out with some whiz bang new tactic. You should do this. You should run TikTok ads. You should, do YouTube ads and all that stuff, which is fine and all. But let's get back to the basics, right? The problem is people keep to forget the fundamental principles of marketing and then direct response marketing. And they assume that by focusing on these tactics, they're going to be successful because it worked for some random guru or for some, thought leader in their industry. But the problem is, if they forget the fundamentals, their whole campaign and messaging is going to fall apart. And I see this over and over and over again.
What do you say in regards to fundamentals? What does that look like, and what should they be focusing on?
Well, if we talk about copywriting, because I specialize in the messaging aspect of a funnel, it's kind of like talking to your customer like a real person, right? It's not a KPI. That subscriber on your email list or someone who visits your sales page, They're not a KPI. They're not some random number generated, string or something. They're a real life flesh and blood human being. And we forget that we have to talk to them like real people. And that's why I went back, to the old school copywriting masters who on average used to be direct salesmen as well, used to be door-to-door salesmen, and they knew the value of having conversations with people. And even though we live in the digital world, the online world, and it's so easy to automate everything, but the problem is we're still trying to simulate a one-on-one conversation in our sales messages. That's why a lot of people call copywriting salesmanship in print. Well, nowadays it's not, in print, but it's one-to-many selling. But you still kind of have to simulate a one-on-one conversation with it. And I think most people forget about this. It's kind of like if it's a Friday evening, you go in a bar and you want to talk to people. You want to find out what's the problem. You want to present your solution to them and just have a real life conversation with them.
One of the things I see a lot in the marketing and business world is a lot of business owners, they really don't want to spend a lot of their time and energy on, funnel optimization. So a lot of times they outsource that to either an ads manager or an ads agency or some sort to run their systems, their process, their funnels and stuff like that, and their copywriting, which is associated to the marketing world on the front end and the back end. And so my question is like, as a business owner, you need to have a heartbeat on every aspect of your business to really see, okay, how can we optimize consistently, right? That's the whole goal of it. So what do you think some business owners that are listening that, are running $1 million, $2 million business and they want to scale to 8-figure, what are certain things that they need to kind of readjust or refocus on to help them say, okay, hey, you know what, maybe we don't have the right team in place. Maybe this is what we need to do in order to achieve that result. And I'm talking B2C, B2B world, as well as like the software side of things.
Yeah, well, obviously, this is a pretty complex question. It depends on a lot of things, and it depends on the specific inner workings of that specific company, right? But what I see in most cases is that they get stuck in scaling because there's this saying that what got you here won't get you there, right? The same messages, the same funnels, the same hooks that work for you with a certain audience, and now you want to scale it on Facebook, for example, or you want to scale it in some way, it might not necessarily work the same way, right? So if we're talking about like how to expand the team so that you can grow, you have like a rock star team that helps you grow, I think investing more in copywriters, in high quality copywriters, or people who have a higher level marketing, strategic marketing perspective in the specific market is definitely worth it. Because, and Dan Kennedy, for example, like a titan of direct response marketing, always talks about the guy who brings in the customer through the door as being like the MVP, the most valuable player of an organization. Yes, you can do all sorts of customer relationship management and back office things and all that stuff, but ultimately the marketing guy, the guy who has the skills to bring in new customers and then monetize those customers properly, is the one who kind of carries the business on their shoulders, in a sense.
Well, you bring up, yeah, and I get where you're coming from. One of the things that I love what you're saying mostly is like the emotional aspect, right? It doesn't matter if you're in the B2C world, B2B, or even software, right? No matter what, it's like you really have to get it emotional, because that's the reason why people buy. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you're, selling and pitching to C-suite, execs, or you're, pitching to a mompreneur or something like that. At the end of the day, it's emotional base. And that's one of the reasons why I enjoy the copywriting side of things. So if you could give us an example of maybe one of your clients that changed the wording, the format, and understanding that that client, that avatar even further to such a deep level that really helped the conversions increase. So if you could just share us a kind of a story or a testimonial, or just a case study that you've been able to work on.
Sure. So one of my recent clients, they run a strategic alliance and partnership event, a pretty big event, hundreds of people who subscribe to this, and they pitch super high ticket products after this event. And this client, he came to me and he wanted help with the front end of his funnel, the sales page more specifically, because the problem was that, yes, they were mailing out, a lot of affiliates were mailing for them, tens of thousands of people, of lists per affiliate. But the problem was that they were getting people who were not really high quality leads, and they wouldn't really show up improper numbers for the event, and they would bounce, or they would not really be, great customers in a sense. So what we did is that we completely recreated the sales page. Instead of like a high-based, relatively short form sales page that just gives them the offer, I created like a 50-page true long form sales letter that only introduces the offer at the halfway mark. And the emotion aspect comes in the fact that instead of making a big promise, because everybody can make those, we shifted our messaging to a unique mechanism. Instead of telling them like, wow, this is so great, we talked about a unique mechanism that delivers the result in a new system that they haven't seen before. And I spent tons of time and effort making sure that the most of the message in the beginning part, the lead part, is it builds a lot of desire, and that's really useful. And it also builds a lot of curiosity, and then it builds value with all the education-based content. So one of the key ways emotion comes into this whole thing is by giving people something that's different, arousing their curiosity because different gets attention, and then teasing that your solution is superior compared to anything else they've seen before, because this arouses their desire. So if you have the combination of curiosity and desire, two very strong emotions, and you also tap into their already existing problems or desires, well, that's pretty strong emotional combination.
So when you talk about like the mechanism, explain that a little bit further so our audience can understand how to properly look at that process.
Sure. So when I say mechanism, this ultimately comes from a guy named Eugene Schwartz, who was kind of like the grandfather of direct response marketing, like we use it today. He wrote a book called Breakthrough Advertising in 1966 that still to this day is considered to be by far the best direct response marketing and copywriting book. And you can ask almost every single A-list copywriter or really high-level marketer, they're going to be raving about this book. There's only one place you can buy it. It's Brian Kurtz's website. It's breakthroughadvertisingbook.com, and it's $125 as like a simple book, but it used to be $900 when it was out of print. Anyway, one of the main ideas there that Eugene Schwartz came up with is something called stages of market sophistication. And there are 5 stages to this. And basically what this model does is it explains how certain markets go through stages based on how much claims they've seen before. So in the beginner stages, in stage 1, it's very easy to just make a claim because you have no competition. But as you move up and up the ladder, people have been exposed to more claims, more empty claims. They've tried potential solutions before, but they failed, right? And there's a lot of baggage, a lot of shame and anger and resentment and anxiety that builds up in people after they try to lose weight with 10 different fad diets, right? And now if you come with like the 11th version of your diet, it's probably not going to connect because they're skeptical. So that's when in stages 3 to 4, you have to come up with something called a mechanism, but not just any mechanism, not just any ordinary mechanism, but a unique mechanism. And what I mean by unique mechanism, it basically explains how your product or service actually delivers the result. So this is a little different than unique selling propositions, because a unique selling proposition, again, going back to Russell Reeves, the guy who, to my knowledge, invented unique selling propositions, it's about giving people a unique benefit that nobody else offers. Like when the iPod first came out, have 5,000 plus songs in your pocket. That was something unique. Or when the first iPhone came out, it was the first package of a real smartphone. But this is hard to do, as you can imagine. So a better way, a different and better way, is to come up with a unique mechanism that gives people the same results. Like I'm still gonna help you get all these results, but doing it differently. And we can see this all the time. One example, P90X fitness system used to be really, really popular. Maybe it still is, but the idea of muscle confusion was their unique mechanism. And then the reason it made sense for people, even though they tried different solutions before, they didn't know about this muscle confusion. And then the whole promotion, their ads mostly focused, and then in their infomercials, they had a pretty big infomercial business. It focused on showing proof that, yes, the reason why you weren't able to lose weight before is because you had 99% of stuff figured out, but there was this one thing missing. And it's the concept of muscle confusion. So now, if you can spice up your workouts, and of course, we have a solution designed specifically for this. If you can do that, you're gonna induce muscle confusion, and you're going to build muscle faster and lose weight faster. So this is what I mean by unique mechanism.
That's such an interesting concept. And at what point did you start realizing that this was the key? And obviously, where do you see this kind of growing and really helping kind of business owners kind of think, okay, I got this product right here. And I'm seeing this a lot in like the real estate, the coaching, the service provider, a lot of just companies, like you said, it's like, okay, hey, you know what? I got the same basic offer, but it's like, maybe I do one-on-one mentorship. Like there's just like the smallest, just smallest little change, or it's like, hey, we can produce bigger results or whatever, right? And they're not really looking for that on the back end, like you said. It's really like the mechanism. And so if you could, like, what point did you start realizing this was the strategy that these actual clients and customers were actually desiring the most? And how can you properly kind of start thinking about it and positioning, people, listeners, offers into that more that the mechanism, and really honing in on the mechanism more so, and really building that emotional aspect around the mechanism?
Oh yeah, great question. So first of all, I think it goes back to research, right? You have to obviously know your audience, know the beliefs that they have about themselves, about other products that are out there in the wild that they've tried before. And obviously they have tons of false beliefs as well, either because they think that they are not able to, get the results. I don't know, because they have bad genes, let's say, if we're talking about weight loss, or because somebody's out to get them, or, they just, there are all sorts of various objections why they can't really get the result, or why they shouldn't get your product. So based on this research and based on your specific method, if you notice, based on your case studies or success stories, what are the things that are working? It's pretty easy to package this up into something that you now call a unique mechanism. And even if you're just a coach, consultant, or expert, and you work with people even one-on-one or in the group coaching program, I'm sure that there is some unique thing that you do that nobody else does. And even if there's nothing like that, you can still call it in a more sexy way, right? You have the same 7-step system, let's say, to write a Facebook ad. You can still call that Chris's or Christian's 7-step, Facebook ad system. It can be that simple, actually. Or you can just genuinely develop like a genuinely new and different and better way to get the same result. So in the internet marketing world, for example, when Jeff Walker came up with product launch formula, which is the gold standard on how to launch courses, even to this day, it was a great unique mechanism, because at that point, people were just launching campaigns and that's it. But he came up with the idea of like, hey, let's extend this whole funnel and let's add 3 pieces of pre-launch content that strategically warms up people, so that when the cart opens, they're already kind of persuaded. If we talk about, there's a concept called persuasion from Robert Cialdini, you persuade them a little bit. Or Todd Brown came up with the E5 method, or Ryan Levesque came up with the ASK method. But even like Proactive, the skincare, thing, there were different unique mechanisms that Proactive was using. And the whole thing about unique mechanisms is that they make logical sense. It gives people new hope. And ultimately, that's what people are buying. They're buying the new hope of a transformation that gives them a result, so that they no longer feel the pain anymore of their problem.
Interesting. And you're just getting me to think a little bit further in regards to, like, obviously the kind of the business structure a little bit. It kind of has to, the whole paradigm has to switch a little bit, because obviously we're always talking about the offer, and if I could produce this and this kind of result, and the reality is they're already looking for that result, but it's a matter of, okay, what's the vehicle, the mechanism that can produce that result quicker, faster, whatever at the end of the day. And like you said, so like, let's say, for example, because I'm just thinking about some of my clients that I work with in consulting and so forth. And it's like, hey, a lot of them may be in the real estate agency and they're like talking about wholesaling, right? And the thing is, how to wholesale, and they got a little info product of how to produce this and produce that. And the reality is that a lot of people are wanting to wholesale, but the reality of the struggle, the biggest pain that they're struggling with is, well, I'm not able to find the deals. So all of a sudden, if you could add that into the offer and say, hey, with our ABC system, we're able to find the deals for you, give them to you, and then also help you one-on-one mentor you. Now all of a sudden, it's a mechanism, that's a process. Is that correct? I just make sure I'm thinking that correctly.
I think yes, kind of, but I would like to make a big distinction between the marketing and the selling. So the way I look at it is that when you have a marketing funnel, so that, it starts with warming up a relatively cold prospect to getting the sale. In my model, 75% of that is marketing, which is all about shifting beliefs. And 25% is just giving them an irresistible offer that's a no-brainer offer, right? So you would use the unique mechanism in both cases. Just like you said, you would obviously design your new product, your offer around this. But in your marketing section, which is the first 75% of your non-sleazy funnel, you would basically, in the beginning, tease this mechanism, then expand upon it, explain it, and then you don't have to, be salesy, or you don't have to sound very aggressive, because you're explaining how the way you work is different. And this in itself is a big proof point for people. And it helps bust objections. After a while, obviously you have to do more things about it, and stories also come into this, and more proof points. But the way I look at it and how I use it, and the way I've seen, the way I look at it is because I've seen all these copywriters and marketers going back 100 years, basically using a version of this and realizing, maybe this is the essential fundamental of how human persuasion works. So you want to establish one belief that, yes, your new solution that you're offering is different and superior compared to anything else they've seen before. And once you have that one buying belief, then you can sell them something. But then selling becomes superfluous, because people already believe that, yes, this is different. Yes, this answered my objections and all that stuff. Does this make sense?
It does. And let me give a better example. So I'm just trying to think here. So the guy that created, I think, some llama butter or something like that. I don't know what the whole thing is, but he puts butter in his coffee. And the thing is because it gets him in ketosis, and the ketosis obviously loses weight and so forth. And so it's like the result is losing weight. That's what a lot of people want. And all you have to do is just put this butter or this little thing in your drink, in your coffee, and it helps you get you in ketosis and burn the fat. So is that kind of what you're basically saying? And this is the mechanism. It's totally different than all the industry. And now all of a sudden people are like, oh, this is awesome. And it's crazy, but it's not too crazy where it's unbelievable, right? It's like, oh, this definitely is very viable. Is that what you're basically saying?
Yes, it's a great big idea and mechanism at the same time. And it's very viral as well, because when it came out, you're basically offering the same benefits and results to people, lose more weight or something. But the way you get to it, how your solution works, is by adding butter to it, right? But then if you want to go one step further, you can say, yeah, but not just any butter. It has to be organic. It has to be grass-fed. It has to come from a cow that's grass-fed. But the only way to get this butter nowadays is to, I don't know, buy it through my shop, right? Because otherwise, if you have an ordinary mechanism, it's just butter. People can just Google it and they just buy butter, and that's it.
That's awesome. Okay, and that makes perfect sense. I appreciate you sharing that a little bit more into detail. So now, let's say, for example, you've got this emotional aspect and you got this mechanism, okay? And obviously, you want to start sprinkling this in to your marketing on the front end. Like you said, it's about 75% does most of the heavy lifting of your marketing, and the sales should be relatively simple. That's where you hook them and building that curiosity and so forth. So if you could walk us through that process a little bit when you're working with a client, how you're able to sprinkle that mechanism from the ad itself to the funnel itself to even maybe integrating with the sales team.
Sure. So the way I mean, there's a lot of paradigms here and a lot of ways to look at it. But the way I look at it from a copywriting background and a more strategic marketer background is that, first of all, you need a big idea, right? Without a new idea that's different and promises something that they haven't seen before, no matter how good your copy is or how good your funnel is, people are just not going to care because there are so many average, mediocre ideas competing for their attention. And that's why if you go to the Agora financial companies, big behemoth, like more than $1 billion of yearly revenue, selling financial subscription services, right? And they, like, these are cost like $49 or something, but they still manage to generate like $1 billion or more. And they are a big believer of the big idea. So first you come up with the big idea, then your headline is the manifestation of this big idea, right? And that's why if you have a good idea, like for example, adding butter to your coffee was a great big idea because nobody else thought about it before. It was a little weird. It was definitely memorable. It was simple to understand. And it was very easy to explain to others as well. It's like, hey, have you tried that? You know, adding butter to your coffee? What? Butter to your coffee? Are you crazy? No, just try it. Really, it gets you into ketosis. That's an excellent example of coming up with a big idea that's different, creating different headlines based on whether you need it on a landing page or email or Facebook ad or whatever. And then if you have like a longer funnel, you really have to build a little desire and curiosity for it. So, you know, I come from the world of long form copy, and the way how you implement it there is by, you have a headline, you have a lead, which is like the few hundred words of copy, which is just there to build emotion. Again, curiosity and desire. And then the bulk of your message, the bulk of your sales letter in this case, or video sales letter, it just proves the big idea. It just, I don't know, comes up with different studies that actually show that butter is good for you, and the you know, the classical food pyramid is a scam, and maybe you can show why there's a common enemy that you know, got greedy and got rich off of your suffering. You know, a lot of people did this, and you can also stimulate emotion with this as well. And then at the end of this whole marketing part, I would say your marketing ends when you instill the one belief that the best way to lose weight in a simple way is to add butter to my coffee. This is what I've been missing in my life. And then you sell them your specific proprietary blend of buttered coffee or something like that. And then the selling, it's basically relatively formulaic how it looks like. You know, introduce it at a high level, you make the price irrelevant, you build up the values, you add some risk reversal to it, you show social proof elements, you provide some sort of urgency or scarcity, and the reason why behind that scarcity. You know, the classic example, there was a warehouse fire, and now we are left with all these supersized boxes, and now we have to sell it at half price, right? And then just close them at the end. This is how I relate to it. I look at it.
I love it. I love it. I think that's awesome. So now with kind of the structure, like you said, you've done a lot of data and research in regards to, like, obviously leveraging 100 top ads and researching a lot of that. What were some of the top things, you know, because I know you've got an incredible you know, document of information that a lot of people could go to your website, consume that, but I would love to just kind of dive into that a little bit. What are, like, you know, top 5 or 6 things that you want to discuss that you found that was very interesting that you would like to share with our audience?
Sure. So of course there were so many, but I did create, like, I did realize that there's so many things crammed in these 100 videos that I've done, and they are on YouTube, but I had to like extract the best elements from it, because everybody's just looking for the best, or the top 5 or the top 10 things, right? So and just like you said, so the first thing I think that's really important is it's worth studying the old school masters. A lot of us think that, oh, now we're so sophisticated. It's 2022 as of recording this episode, and like everybody's so smart now, and like you know, everything's changed, and the old stuff wouldn't work anymore. But guess what? The people who invented the game, Claude Hopkins, who invented scientific advertising, and the fact that you measure your ads and your advertising, it's still the same. And the fundamental principles of human persuasion doesn't really change. Tactics change, and media changes, and markets, yes, they go through cycles, but ultimately humans don't really change. And the reason why I wanted to go back to the source is because I wanted to figure out what these people thought about this whole thing without all the all the fancy, supposedly good tactics layered on this. And what I've noticed nowadays is there are a lot of gurus selling different courses and programs that basically just rehash the same old 100-year-old information, but they dilute it because nowadays people do have a shorter attention span, and it's less sexy to say, well, to get good at copywriting is to start hand copying sales letters or something like that, or to write every single day. People want the quick fix, the magic pill or something. So that's why I wanted to keep it real and go back to the source, which was definitely a big mindset shift for me, because I was also under the impression before that it's like, yeah, it's a good thing to know a few foundational things about the old school stuff, but nowadays it wouldn't work, right? Well, without extra context, it wouldn't, yes, but that's why you have to know the old school stuff and you have to know the new school stuff, and then when you combine it, it gives you an unfair advantage because not many people are doing that. So this was one of them, for example. The other thing was that the fundamentals of copywriting itself doesn't really change. So how a pitch looks like nowadays, a persuasive pitch, it doesn't really change. Like, you still need to get their attention, you need to hook them, you need to build emotional rapport with them, you need to prove what you're promising them, you need to give them some sort of social proof or something, you need to give them an irresistible offer, and then you have to kind of sell them and close them on the offer. It's pretty much the same thing, but again, we've become so templatized nowadays. A lot of people, they want to buy, the best course ever, and then they just want to copy paste it, and then, copy my 5-step, step-by-step formula, and you just substitute a few words and you'll be printing money. Yeah, it's not so simple.
Well, let's dive into that, because you're exactly right. I remember when I first started, and oh my gosh, it was like the concepts I got. It was like, okay, that makes sense. Drive traffic to a landing page, get conversions, VSL to schedule a phone call, and then sell them, right? It was like, I get that. That makes sense. But there was like so much more into it. And obviously a lot of the listeners right now, they're intermediate, right? And it's still, even when you had like $1 million business, you can scale to $1 million business in today's world pretty quickly, honestly. But to get to that 8-figure mark, it takes quite a bit of energy, and it obviously takes a lot of skill in regards to obviously the marketing, to the obviously the lifetime cycle of the client, and the back end, the fulfillment, and obviously upselling them on other things. And a lot of that has to do with just congruency in regards to like, who is your ideal client, and it comes down to that, right? But before we talk about that, because that's such beginner, I really want to dive deeper into that. So instead of just saying, this ideal client, right? Because everybody gets it. It's really being able to leverage, okay, you know what? Once we understand, okay, hey, you know what? Our ideal client are doctors that own a private practice, that are dentists, that are at $250,000 of revenue right now, and they want to scale to 1.5. Okay, now they're in pain. This is what they have. They don't have any front end offer or marketing stuff. Okay, wonderful. So that's their pain. They want to scale to 1.5. So now we've been able to really niche down. This is who I'm talking about. Now, with our copy, from our sales funnel to our ads and everything like that, correct me if I'm wrong, but now what we can do is we can start hitting that pain and over. Hey, are you a doctor? Are you a dentist that's struggling at $250,000 that wants to scale at 1.5? You don't have any marketing side, you don't have any systems, you don't have any what, like now you're hitting pain after pain after pain, because now instead of talking to overarching, just saying, hey, are you a business owner that's struggling with leads, right? That's so generic, right? And so I really want to dial into that a little bit. How have you been able to leverage your skills to really help your clients dial down? And let's talk a little bit more, like when you're talking about emotional selling, what words, what vocabulary, what semantics do you use that really dial in that emotional, trickling that emotional aspect?
Yeah. So the first part of the question, or the first question, let's cover that first. So what I see over and over again is that most people think or believe that they need something, but they need something else. So they believe they need better ads or more ads or higher click-through rates or something like that. But ultimately, it's just a vanity metric, unless you know your numbers throughout the funnel, for example. So ultimately, what you're looking for, if you want to really scale past 7 figures, for example, in this case, is you really have to get your tracking. And this is not really copywriting related stuff. It's more like business and strategy related stuff, but you have to take care of your tracking so that you know your numbers. You have to know your cost per acquisition. You have to know your average order value. You have to know, because now cost like CPMs and the cost of traffic is so high, especially on Facebook and YouTube, that most people are using for their ads, that you have to know how long can you afford to stay negative with the front end campaign before actually making money off the back end, or how long is your lifetime customer value. Before you know all these things, it doesn't really make sense to focus on your messaging or specific words or funnels that much, because you have to nail this first, in my opinion. And it's, by the way, it's way easier to increase average order value on a front-end funnel than to increase conversion rates so that your cost per acquisition go down. It's way easier to add one more upsell or to tweak your upsell so that it's better, or add another bump offer, or just raise your price or something like that. For all the other things that we're going to talk about to make sense, right? The next thing I would do is focus on the idea, just like I said, the big idea, because ideas are that make great businesses. So if you really come up with an idea, just like buttered coffee, just like, I don't know, Starbucks when it came out, Uber when it came out, iPhone when it came out, the good thing with this is that it immediately grabs attention and you don't have to work so hard with your marketing because people get it. So what I see is that most businesses, 90% of them, have totally mediocre ideas. So if they want to create the conditions to scale, they need to spend way more effort on crafting a better idea, a way better idea. And once they have that idea, yes, then they can start optimizing various parts of the funnel. For example, if they want, better customers, if they want bigger lifetime customer values, for example, yes, they need to figure out how to find those people who are willing to spend more and for longer and more often. They can't just go and optimize their campaigns for cost per click, because yes, you're getting clicks, cool and all, but you're not really getting customers, or customers who are, really engaged. And once you have that, then you can start optimizing your messaging, and you start testing new new VSL or new email marketing strategies, for example. And then, this is a complex question, right? There are tons of things you have to do. It's not so simple, but this is how I would approach it.
Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about, I appreciate that insight. Talk about trickling in the emotional aspect in your copywriting, from the ad to the landing page, to the sales funnel and stuff like that.
What do you mean more specifically? Like, let's look at a funnel from like ad to sale.
Well, basically, what I'm getting at a little bit is, like, obviously there are certain techniques that you can use that really dial in the emotional aspect. Again, it is all dependent upon your client, right? Understanding their vocabulary, what are the semantics, what is the wording that they use, and really dialing that in. So whether you want to take my example of the dentist and really dialing that pain in, and what emotional wording that you could use to really facilitate them to convert, or just obviously leveraging, a client testimony of yours or a case study of yours that said, hey, you know what, we took this individual, we knew their audience, we knew that these words resonated with that audience, and these words we integrated throughout the long form sales copy that obviously helped generate, X result.
Sure. Okay. So by the way, everything that we're going to talk about in this section, like, it assumes that the strategic side of your funnel is okay, because I call these things micro copywriting things, right? They're important, and there's definitely like NLP copywriting and all sorts of triggers and power words and all that stuff. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter that much unless you have the specifics of all the things that we talked about. So you have the numbers and the message and the idea and stuff like that. So let's look at the example I gave regarding my client with the long form sales page and the strategic partnership offer. So there, one of the key persuasion triggers we used in terms of emotion was that throughout the sales letter, I would do a lot of teasing. So teasing is good. You don't have to be afraid of teasing. In emails, you also tease a lot of things if it's a multi-step funnel, right? Because it's kind of like, if you look at a good movie or a good series, they always tease a lot. They give you more and more clues, but they don't give it away, because if they give it away, it triggers something called the categorical imperative. And what this means is that people will feel like, oh, I've heard that before, or I've seen that before. So, ultimately they make a quick decision of like, do they still want to be interested in that or not? And in most cases, they just bounce. So that's why one of the key emotional techniques is teasing. You can also use another version of this called open loops. So this is a classic of like, I'll tell you more about open loops in a second, but first let's talk about my origin story here. So that's an open loop. If people are interested in the things that we're talking about, because you've built emotional desire in them, then you can add extra messages. You can, extend the amount of time they spend with you. They spend listening or reading your message. And it's a scientifically proven fact that the more people engage with your message and the more they consume it, the more likely they are to actually buy, because they have to rationalize to themselves the time they spent on your message. So are these the type of things that you are referring to?
Yes, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I want to kind of, foot stomp this a little bit and really kind of sit in this for a second, because see, when I was building my business, I remember so distinctively, like I knew my audience already had struggled with like drop shipping, FBA, this and that, coaching, consulting. And so what I did in a lot of our copy was like, obviously throw stones at that. Hey, stop buying Facebook ads, stop buying FBA, stop buying drop shipping, stop doing that. Like I know exactly where the pain, the frustration, because I was there in the same situation. I did that. And then of course, let me ask you, and I always share my story and so forth. Hey, I was doing that. I was spending hundreds of thousands. I was doing this. I was putting credit card debt and all that stuff and whatever. And I was so frustrated, right? Again, I know my audience, that's what they were struggling with, right? I was exactly the same with you, but I knew that there was another way. And obviously, let me ask you, if I was able to give you the technical stuff, if I was able to develop the sales funnel, if I was able to develop the ad that actually works and converts, and I gave you the actual product that produces and whatever, would you take me up on that offer?
Yeah.
Now, again, with that strategy, what I've realized, and I didn't even know I was doing it, honestly, is I was creating enough curiosity, but I was not actually giving them the education. I wasn't giving them the actual, this is how to do it. Because now what happened was, from my ad to my VSL to my sales phone call, now it created enough curiosity. And in order to actually, for us to do it and teach you, you have to buy into our system. So now what happened was, I really wasn't giving them any training. And the reason why I'm saying this a little bit is because I'm seeing a lot of people now talk, because definitely entrepreneurs and business people, we love to train, we love to teach, we love to educate, and that's okay. But what I'm realizing is that by teaching and educating too much, now what happens, you give them the answer and now you don't convert them and so what I like to do a little bit is, what I've noticed is like, curiosity kills the cat, but it works with the conversions on the back end. So it's like, you don't ever give them the full answer. You give them, hey, this is what you're looking for. This is the pain you're in. You want to achieve that result. Well, guess what? That's where we come in. We can help you assist and get you. So if we did that for you, or did whatever, blah, 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 whatever that result, would you want us to do that? But we're not teaching them or training them. It's more of just creating that curiosity. And I'd love to just get your response on that. Is that what you have seen as well?
Oh, absolutely. You're right on point. Absolutely. Giving it away is a big mistake. And that's why secret leads work so well. And people are drawn to secrets. Whenever you see a headline that's a secret, it never really gives it away. And if, I analyzed like dozens and dozens and dozens of old school magalogs and direct mail pieces as well that use this same framework. And guess what? They never give away the secret, not even in the sales page. You have to buy the book or the special report or the course to really discover this. Nowadays, maybe it's a little different because people have access to more information. They can Google things easier. So in that case, what I usually recommend people is that they give away the why. I mean, start with why, like Simon Sinek said. They give away the why, they give away the what partially, but they don't give away the how. And you can give them tons of value and educate them and give away 80% of everything you know. People will still buy the remaining 20% because that's the implementation, that's the how, that's all the little specifics. So you're absolutely right on this.
Well, and just to reiterate this, see, I think Russell Brunson did this just beautifully. Is what he did was he created all these books and all this foundation on just exactly that, the why and the what. And then what he did was how to do it is by leveraging my software, right? This is the
Yes.
solution. And then what happens? Well, oh, dang, I need this because now in order to achieve that result, which is what building a business and producing and creating and scaling and so forth, was I needed this software. And that's just like you said, that paradigm shift. That's the mechanism in order to achieve that result. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was such an ingenious move on his part, like giving all the best info away for free or nearly free, and then getting people hooked on a monthly recurring revenue like app that they have to use, right? It was just amazing. And it really shows like.
Definitely. So I appreciate having this conversation at a deeper level because I do see a lot of business owners struggling with this. And so let's talk a little bit more, like obviously the mechanics of it, if you will. So let's say, for example, you have a copywriter. Probably a majority of business owners that are listening right now have copywriters in place. How can they determine, okay, is this copywriting performing or is it not? Like, what are certain metrics? Like you said, there are vanity metrics that do not matter. And there are certain metrics that are, okay, this is moving the money needle further. So just to kind of give a little bit of glimpse, like, okay, this is where our copywriter should be really dialed in. So just kind of get a little perspective on that.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're trying to optimize for, and it also depends on your ego. Because if you're trying to optimize for vanity metrics, that's totally fine, and that's what most people do. Like, okay, so write me ads that have high click-through rates, for example. Most media buyers or people who are managing Facebook ads, for example, oftentimes they optimize on click-through rates. They don't have all the data throughout the funnel, and most people don't even measure it to begin with. But you can also optimize for like customer satisfaction, right? You can optimize for getting loyal fans. And there's different copy that produces loyal fans than the copy that just gets you the click, but ultimately it's a lot of tire kickers, right? So that's why this is a complicated question because it really depends on what you're trying to optimize for. Obviously, everybody's trying to get sales at the end of the day, but how you get there it depends on your values, your mission statement, and all these things, your culture as well. And the other thing, ego, is I would say there are two types of clients. Either ones of those who try to micromanage copywriters and who really want to force their vision on the target audience. And maybe they really know their target audience really well. But in most cases, even when they believe they know them, they know a lot of demographic information, but I bet you they don't know all the psychographic information, and they don't know their deepest, darkest beliefs. And they're trying to sell them features and benefits when you shouldn't even sell them benefits. You should sell them emotional and functional benefits on how those things will manifest in their life, in real life, right? So there's a big difference there. Like to give you an example, let's say you're trying to sell, I don't know, a mechanical pencil, right? So most people, how they would sell it is they would say that it has a soft and spongy grip, right? And it's easy to hold because of this. So the soft and spongy grip is the feature, and easy to hold is the benefit, right? So if you're like an old school architect and use pencils, this is great for you because easy to hold. Yeah, guess what? But people don't wake up at 2 a.m. in the night thinking, oh my God, I want a pencil that's easy to hold, right? So then you go deeper, you dimensionalize the benefit, and you say, so you can write for hours a day with no pain in your hand or in your wrist. That's a dimensionalized benefits because people can relate to that. It's like, oh yeah, I draw every single day. Let's say they're anime drawers or something, manga, the Japanese little comic books drawers, and their hand hurts, which is putting their livelihood at danger if they don't use a good enough pencil. So suddenly, instead of talking about features and benefits, you could talk about more emotional things, or you can go even deeper. So you can say, so you can feel great knowing that, every day you wake up and you write to your heart's content without ever having to worry about the pain again. And this is just some very superficial example that I came up with, but it illustrates one of the things that business owners have to really keep in mind is to allow the copywriters to go steps deeper, because usually people don't. They always want to go the safe route and not try to be polarizing at all, or not try to be emotional. but I think it's a mistake in most cases.
Yeah, and I really want to iterate this because I love what you're saying there, because I do see this in the B2C world. It's very simple because it's obviously more emotional based. B2B, a lot of people
Mhm.
try to veer away from that because, in software as well, because it's like, oh, it's not professional. We're talking to
Yeah.
C-suite, right? And I literally had someone on the other day, and his whole marketing message is just funny. He created this whole. He was at a um, some sort of event, and he had this, what was this, pickle marketing is what he called it. He just had this big nasty looking pickle, and it had nothing to do with his message at all, but he knew it would grab people's attention. And it was so, it was at a B2B conference, and it grabbed people's attention. People were talking about it, and he got more leads and more revenue from that, just from just standing out and doing something different. And I really want to, I'd love to get your perspective on it as well. And I know it's a little bit of strategy behind marketing, but I think copywriting and marketing and the whole structure
Yeah,
of it is so integrated
absolutely.
that it's every part of it. So what have you noticed that really helps people, really stand out above the crowd? Because I know, like you said, it's like the mechanics. It's not just about the offer, but it's also really having something that's, what's your voice that you want to share? Is it more serious, or is it more like, hey, I'm going to be fun? That's kind of my personality and that's my
Mhm.
brand, right? So I'd love for your response on that.
Yeah, great question. And I, just like you said, people in B2B tend to forget this, tend to forget that people buy from people, and they might be Fortune 500 CEOs, but they're still people. They still eat and poop and do everything else, like no us do, right? So if you can appeal to their emotions and make them look good, let's say, or something like that, then they're going to be much more receptive for your message. And humor, just like you said, is a great way to do this. A great, actually very easy way to do this if you genuinely have a funny personality. Like Ramit Sethi does this. Okay, he's more B2C, but another example, I'm going to be speaking at an event in about a month, and it's called the Entrepreneur Conference. And you have to be a nerd, or you have to have a topic that relates to some sort of Star Wars or sci-fi or fantasy. So my talk is going to be about showing how HBO totally messed up Game of Conversions from a storytelling perspective by ending the Night King story arc way too early, right? So that's going to be and that's different. It's a totally B2B event, but that's different. The other thing is just stories in general. We haven't really touched on stories yet, but they're super important. And even if you just have like a discovery story of your solution, your unique mechanism, that's already very engaging to most people. And if you know your target audience, you can weave the story in a way that they will feel like you're not telling them something, you're just sharing your experience, but they will identify with it. There's tons of psychological real-world data on specific brain regions lighting up when you're reading or listening to a story that is relevant to you. The other thing would be the unique mechanism that we talked about many times before. Even in B2B, like there's absolutely no risk in creating a unique mechanism for yourself, for example. And the fourth one would be voice, like you said, like just being a little different, just being a little bit more polarizing. Don't be so vanilla, because vanilla, sure, it's okay from a status quo perspective, but you're never going to scale with it. It's okay to alienate a little bit of your audience. I mean, I'm not saying you should imitate politics, but look at politics, right? Half the US really strongly believes something, and the other half really strongly believes something else entirely. How can they be so like apart from each other? I don't know, but it's really like you can still get tons and tons of people who really strongly believe with you.
I love that. And specifically on stories, I kind of want to swing back around to the story side of things, because you're right. We haven't touched much on it. Now, I do know in the B2C world, it's a little simpler, right? Like, let's say, for example, the guy with the butter, right? He was able to share his story that obviously facilitated the result that he was looking for. And now it attracted those individuals that were struggling with the same thing, right? So that's in that category, it's very simple, right? To go to B2C. But B2B is a little tougher because a lot of people, they like to pull back. Now, Russell Brunson, if you look at his company, it's a B2B world, but he's also very out on the front stage. And a lot of B2B individuals or software, owners, they like to be on the back end and have the software and the features. So if you think about like Vistia, you think about TubeSwift, you think about all those other companies, HubSpot, for example. However, though, they've been able to still scale at a tremendous level. And what I'm always intrigued with is how they leverage their story to really still facilitate that kind of relationship. And I think a really good example is like Subway. Subway, who's going to be the face of the company? Well, all of a sudden they use that one guy that, that was his story, and they ran that campaign for many, many years that created a massive increase in sales and so forth. That was literally proven. But I love to tell, kind of get a little bit more examples in regards to like how you've seen people leverage stories and how to leverage it properly, definitely in the B2B world.
Yeah. So all these SaaS companies, I mean, they invest a lot of money and effort hiring great copywriters. And I know for a fact that like Wistia and these successful SaaS companies, they spend a lot of money on hiring great copywriters who are really big on stories and on actually not being boring at all. Because the problem is, here's the problem, in marketing, or nowadays, just in general, if you're boring, it's a death sentence, right? Nobody pays attention to you. Maybe it was okay at some point in the past, but nowadays it's not good. And if you're at B2B, yes, that's still a problem. And if you're like an extremely big company, maybe you can get away with it. If you're like a mining company, obviously you're not going to have, because you don't necessarily need it. It also depends on your audience and your market to message match. But even if you look at Coca-Cola, they're always telling stories. Like all their ads are basically like, their Christmas ads are like people having fun and drinking Coke and children being cheerful of Santa Claus, right? Those are mini stories on themselves. Or if you look at Super Bowl ads, like I love that one. This year, I think BMW did a Super Bowl ad on electric cars, and they hired Arnold Schwarzenegger for this, and Penelope Cruz or Salma Hayek, I don't know, one of those. And they did like maybe it wasn't a Super Bowl ad, I don't know, but it was like a few minute long ad, and it had like a mini story of Zeus living a suburban life, right? And just how his life is and how he's bored and how he gets excited when he sees this new electric car. Like, I mean, BMW is as B2B as you can get, but they still use the story, and they get tons of attention because of this. Or Apple used to be great at this, telling mini stories. So I think there are a lot of examples. The problem is in bigger companies or B2B, you have all these boards who are usually those people don't really like to take risks, and they don't really approve any of these story ideas. That's the problem.
Well, you're exactly right, because just like you were saying, coming back to the point of a lot of them, they don't want to be controversial. They don't want to be, but that's really what it takes to grab people's attention, because that's the number one asset out there is attention, people's attention. And Gary Vee talks about it, always day trading attention and stuff like that. But that's what you have to do to stand out. And I just appreciate the immense value. I mean, just talking about obviously the copywriting, the structure, back in the same fundamentals that we sometimes walk away from, but obviously implementing those in our business and systems. And then also talking about mechanics, the mechanics versus obviously the benefits and stuff like that. Csaba, how can our audience reach out to you, be part of Game of Conversions, and be part of your community, man?
Sure. Just before I do that, open loop right there, one more snippet on stories and why they work so well. People buy from other people who they know, like, and trust. And the best way, even to this day, we evolve to be receptive to it, is stories. Okay. If you share a story, you show your vulnerabilities, you're willing to do that, people are going to trust you more. And remember, like in 2022, people can see through the bullshit. They're sick and tired of all these fake people, all these fake campaigns, all these photoshopped things. People want raw, and you can see that with ads as well, with YouTube ads, with iPhone style video ads that work really well, way better sometimes than high production value videos. So I get it. You might be a B2B company and you're afraid, but try it. And you're going to see that people are going to look at you like real human beings, not just some random corporate brand. It makes a big difference. So with that being said, open loop over. I have a website. It's called gameofconversions.com. So it's like Game of Thrones, but gameofconversions.com. You can visit there. But even better, after I broke down the 100 proven sales letters, I did realize that it's a lot of people. It's a lot of content for people to to really get through. Like it's 100 hours of content on YouTube. So I distilled the very best lessons, and I shared a few of those here, but there are more there, including what I consider to be the ultimate persuasive message template, and how you can use that in a Facebook ad, in a YouTube ad, in an email, in a landing page, and even in a long form sales page. So to get that, and also more commentary to my videos and dripped out twice per week, go to gameofconversions.com/copywriting-secrets. So probably we're going to have a link below this, but gameofconversions.com/copywriting-secrets. So when you go there, you're going to get the cheat sheet, and you're also going to get these videos conveniently dripped out for you, plus a few cool bonuses that I think you definitely enjoy.
Awesome. And guys, those links will be in the description below. So make sure you just consume those. Make sure you literally stop what you're doing right now and click on that and just be part of what he's got going on, and reach out. Even if you run a multi-million-dollar business and you have a copywriting team, get another perspective, reach out to him, have a conversation, say, hey, you know what? How can we adjust? How can we optimize? How can we pivot very quickly to really, really dial in those conversions like he was talking about? And, again, I really appreciate the immense value that you brought to our audience and me as well. I've been taking a lot of notes over here, which is really awesome. And Csaba, how can is there any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience before I let you go?
Yes. So another thing that people usually forget is empathy. So again, remember your leads, your people in your customer relationship tool or whatever you're using, they're still real life people. They have fears, pains, hopes and dreams and frustrations and beliefs, right? So be a little bit more empathetic with them, right? Try to go one level deeper to understand what their real problem is. And if you do, I promise you, even without, optimizing other stuff in your marketing, they're going to gravitate towards you way more effectively. So this is another extra tip that I usually like to tell people, because many people overlook it, but it's extremely important, especially nowadays when people crave connections. After COVID, people got locked up, and they crave connection. They crave the human element.
That's awesome, guys. That is the CEO and founder of Game of Conversions, Csaba, my friend, and that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can.
Yo, this is Christian D. Evans, Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. We thank you so much for listening to this amazing episode. If you feel and you know that this was valuable to you, please show some love to our amazing guest by liking this, by commenting on this, by making sure that you do a nice 5-star review, and just show some love to our guest. That'd be really awesome. Also, make sure you share this with a friend, a family, a colleague, someone that you believe would bring value to their life right now. And guys, we just want to say thank you again for just being part of our community. If you want to have more resources, don't be afraid. Go to christiandevans.com. You can actually schedule a phone call with me, or you can send me an email at christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. That's christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. Always love to hear some feedback, and let me know what is the number 1 or 2 things that you are struggling in your business and your life, and we'll make sure we have those conversations. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast, and until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers.